Hello sewing friends, and welcome to my channel. This is Christa's Dress Shop, and I am Christa. I am a bridal alteration seamstress, I guess you would call me, bridal alteration specialist. Everybody has different names for things, sewist, whatever you call yourself. If you love to sew and you love to sew formal wear, or you're interested in sewing formal wear, this channel is for you. I'm hoping in this channel to share my experience in the bridal industry, and also especially in the sewing realm of that, the alteration realm of that. And I have learned a lot through my years in the bridal industry. And so I'm hoping to share that with you, along with not just the sewing techniques, but also little side things. That's what today's video is all about. Little things of how to make your life a little easier, or what to do about this or what to do about that. And today is all about scheduling our brides and scheduling some sewing time. So if you're a seamstress, your number one issue a lot of times is time. How do you have time to meet everybody? And how do you have time to actually get the sewing done? And one thing can actually interrupt the other thing. And so in my life now, I am trying to separate those things. I did own a bridal shop for 16 years, and that was not an option. In fact, in the early years, I started upstairs in a ballroom that had, well, actually before that, I started in my home in a basement, and I was able to separate customer time from sewing time because it was in my home. Well, then I went into the bridal world and I had my doors open. Tuesday through Saturday was my hours. We had Sundays and Mondays off. And a lot of times I would have to go in on my days off to get any sewing done, or get in really, really early. There were times where I couldn't sleep 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would just get dressed, leave my husband a note, and go into the shop downtown, a little sketchy at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I'd go lock myself into the dress shop and get all of my sewing done, or I'd try to come in before my employees. But I also, there were negatives and positives. The positive about having an actual retail shop was that I kept certain hours, and so I had a schedule. So I knew that I would be there, and if there were days when there were no customers, I could get a lot of sewing done. And if there were days that had a lot of customers and a lot of interruptions, I didn't get a lot done. So there's positives and negative. Tell me in the comments, do you sew out of your home? Do you sew in a retail environment or some kind of a business? And what are your struggles with that? I've had struggles both ways. So now I've closed my retail store, and I have a sewing studio in my backyard. It used to be an old garage, a detached garage that my husband turned into my studio, which gives me a great place away from my home, away from my pets and all their fur and all the craziness, and away from cooking smells, which is really, really important. But now I have a designated space, not only to sew and make a mess, but also to meet my brides and stuff that's separate. So my husband doesn't have to go hide in a back bedroom somewhere or something like that. Because, in the olden days when I sewed out in my basement, if I had customers, that's exactly what happened. Everybody had to go hide. So tell me in the comments, do you deal with some of those things? Well, I am now in my 3rd season away from my retail store. In March, end of March 2021, I closed the retail store and moved into this studio. So most of 2021 bridal season, I was sewing for the first time, and I was packed because I had closed my store and booked up all my brides through the whole, about a year and a half. So I didn't go in with a lot of forethought in when was I going to sew if I was just meeting brides all the time. So this next season, which was last season, the 2022 season, I decided I was only going to meet my brides on Wednesdays. And so I had another seamstress friend who did it out of her home, and she only met them on Wednesdays, and she sewed the other days. Thought, this is great. I can clean up the studio, make it, customer worthy, and meet them, get it all out of the way for fittings and stuff, and then sew the other days. I ran into a few problems with that. I had quite a few brides that couldn't do Wednesdays. So what do you do with those brides? For her, she just said, well, if you can't meet Wednesdays, you're probably not my bride. You can go that route and set a schedule. I was finding that the brides that really are my brides, you have kind of a type and they tended to need another day of the week. So I opened it up to Wednesdays or Thursdays, and I would meet in the evenings, so they could do it after work. But then I also ran into some brides I have a lot of brides who come to me from out of town. So they drive 2, 3, 4 hours to get here. And so to do it in the middle of the week in an evening, that became really hard because they really needed to probably spend the night with relatives here or get a hotel room or something like that. And so then I started opening up some Fridays. So what they would do is I did a few Saturdays as well, Saturday early mornings, but I'd prefer not to. I spent 16 years in retail, and every Saturday of my life was gone. I never got to do anything like baby showers and bridal showers and weddings. For 16 years, I missed all of those family events and all of that kind of stuff, barbecues. So I try to really stay off of Saturday because I just feel like I lost that for so many years that I don't want to lose it now. So what I've been finding that works for me is I still only want to meet brides 1 day a week, and I want to sew the other 4. So I will offer either a Wednesday or Thursday to the first bride who books for that week. And then every other bride on that week, I tell them I only have Thursday that week. If you want Wednesday, it's the next week. So I still only book out 1 day a week. I say only, there's always those exceptions of that last minute bride or, stuff like that. I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for trying to please people, which I got to get better at that. And then if I have maybe a couple brides that want to meet out of town, then I tell all my brides for that week, I only have a Friday available. And so I will sew the other days of the week. I also have another tricky thing is I have aging parents and my in-laws are also aging. And there's some situations now where I have to take them to the doctors and stuff. So now I'm trying to put all brides on 1 day a week and maybe all errands for the parents on 1 day a week, if that works. And then sew 3 days a week, which means I also sometimes on my days off have to run in here and do stuff too, but that's okay. It's just the season of life I'm in. But I kind of wanted to share a few things with you and also get your input on some things too. Maybe you have a really neat way of doing it. I love the planner, and you guys, some of you guys do the online or computer apps and stuff like that. Share those in the comments, what you use for that. I tend to go a little old school because I need to see it. I don't know what it is about writing things out and having it. I don't know. I feel like if my phone dies or the app goes down, it's my age, I guess. I don't know, but there are a lot of really great apps out there. So share if you're using an app. But I tend to use the At a Glance that I just go and get at my Home Depot. Not Home Depot, Office Depot. You don't go into Home Depot and try to find a schedule book. But the Office Depot or Office Max, I'm trying to think some of the other office stores. And I just go and get, I think it's Cambridge that does it. I'm not sure, but at a glance. I used to get for my shop. Let me see if I can find, this is an old one. This is 2021. I was actually trying to find 2020 before COVID. I think I have them in storage over here, but this is 2021 after COVID, and my schedule book's a lot different. But let me show you a blank page so you can see. This one is at a glance, where this day, Friday, August 27th, it has actually four spots. And so what I used to do for the shop is I had 4 different dressing rooms, or 4 different bridal suites, and I had a group of employees. And so on the top here in my old books, you'll see it said bridal suite 1, bridal suite 2, small dressing room, and the girls, and it would also depend on how many girls I had working that day, because we could actually do 4 appointments at one time. And then when I had a few less employees, I would make some of these. So this would be like a bridal appointment that they're actually in the bridal suite buying a gown. This was the second bridal suite buying a gown. And then I would put my fittings here, and we also did tuxedos, so I would put tuxedo appointments here. So that's how I did it at the dress shop. But then as soon as it got to be after COVID, I had to run the entire bridal shop myself, because in the 7-8 weeks that we were shut down, some of my employees, and I had less at that point anyway, we were kind of trying to do with less at that point, but they had to go out and get real jobs. Well, we were a real job too, but a job that was other than retail, so that they could feed their families, because I couldn't pay them through the middle of that mess. And also, I had already made a decision to close my shop in 2021. And so I took it as an opportunity to kind of start to wean things down. And so COVID actually became the tool that I had to be able to switch to appointment only. And to tell you the truth, after running my bridal shop for 16 years and coming across COVID, and I know a lot of other bridal shops felt the same, we ran it in the middle of COVID, and when we were allowed to open up, completely appointment only. We shut the doors, and we had people, we only unlocked the doors at appointment time. We had notes on the door that said you have to have an appointment to come in. And you know what? We sold more gowns. We had a better percentage rate because we were able to focus on that bride, or focus on 1 or 2 brides at a time. And then it got to where I just ran after COVID from 2020, about May 2020 to March of 2021, where I closed the store. I ran it completely, a huge store, completely on my own, because I was able to block out days that I could sew and say, sorry, I don't have any appointments for that day available. And I would just sew that entire day. And the next day I would put all my appointments on, and I would just run appointments. Well, I kind of kept that model as I went here into the dress shop. And instead of, I've noticed customers don't understand a lot. Now I can tell my customers, I only meet 1 day a week and I sew the other days. But if you were trying to tell people when I had a retail establishment, this is my sewing day, I can't meet anybody, they never understood it. They were like, come on, just let me come in and see for a minute. I just need to come in and check some stuff out. And you would go ahead and open the door for them, and then you were there for 2 or 3 hours with them because they couldn't decide, and they wanted to try on this and try on that, and I lost a lot of time in sewing. So now I'm pretty strict about making sure that I only do, I only do like a day for appointments, and then other days just for sewing. So here is 2021. I've still got the shop open, and you can actually see where, since it's just me, I'm only booking in these first sections here. And then I actually ended up putting a to-do list over here, and over here I kind of put in between where I had people that I was meeting for fittings and stuff like that. And then I would have days where I completely block them out. You can see here, it's a sewing day. I am not going to, I'm going to finish the dresses on my rack. So that's what's going on this week too. Before I go on to that, here is you saw that was the planner that I did with the 4 columns for one day. I now go to a week. In each day has 1 column. And so this is a week in review. So the at a glance books, you can actually pick different variations. Like, how do you want your month laid out? And so here you can see this particular day, I actually had 4 brides straight through. And actually I ended up fitting in a few here that aren't even marked on that particular day. And this happened to be a Friday where I had all out of town people. And then here, sewing day, sewing day, sewing day. But of course, I ended up doing some doctor appointments here too. And I ended up doing 1 fitting really quickly in the morning. She had a last minute alteration, so I just got her in so I can get her dress done. But that's basically for the planners. Now, what I would say is come up with a plan. That's the first thing. Come up with a plan. What are you going to do to make your week more productive? What are you going to do so you can focus? I don't know about you, but I am a person that can just work. If I'm going to do a hem or I'm marking something, I need to keep those measurements, or if I'm doing side seams and stuff like that and marking that all, to be uninterrupted, I will do a better job. And also I can get farther faster. But when I'm constantly interrupted, and at the shop I always was, that was so frustrating because I would mark out a day. I'm talking before COVID, when I had employees and everything. At the beginning, I started with my shop. Well, first of all, when I left my basement, sewing in my basement, and I actually went into the retail world, I started in this ballroom place, and I had an upstairs kind of whole dress shop and everything. And then from there, I moved down across the street into where it was a salon, and that's where it stayed for the 16 years. And I had because it was just me and my daughter running it, and I think I had 1 other employee. So my sewing room was right next to the office and had an opening. So when she was taking calls, and it was by the front door, so when people came in, I could be sewing, and then all of a sudden somebody came in. So I needed my sewing room to be accessible to everything that was going on, people walking in the door. And then later on, we moved, not moved our shop, but I actually expanded up into, they had an upstairs area over another part of the building. And then it got to the point where every time somebody walked in that door, they were interrupting me and they wanted to sit and talk, especially salespeople. They just come in out of nowhere, and we were getting bigger and bigger, and now all the salespeople wanted to sell me stuff like ads and stuff like that. So I ended up moving my sewing room upstairs and kept my people downstairs, my employees, so they could answer the phone. They could kind of weed through who was coming in the door, and then if it was important, they could come and get me. Then we actually got more parts to the downstairs of that upstairs area, and I was hiring more seamstresses, and I needed a bigger area. So, and I had some seamstresses, or actually I had some employees that I needed to watch a little closer. They, it got hard at the end with employees. So I actually moved my sewing room downstairs but it was like I wasn't right by the front door, and I wasn't by the phone so much. So they still had to come get me, but I could actually view the entire shop and floor and see kind of what was going on at the same time without them really seeing me. That's a long story. That's more about layout. But I think the most important thing, number one, is to come up with a plan. How are you going to have enough time to sew and have good time to meet with the brides? There's another seamstress, wonderful seamstress here in town, and she just has like a sewing area where people walk in all day long, and she's always running behind because people come in and they want to talk to her. And it's good because she's the only one there, so she really has to open her doors, and she does all different kinds of alterations and stuff. So tell me in the comments, you know, how do you run your store? Are you at home? Are you in a retail space? Do you have to be by the front door or by the phone? Can you hide a little bit? Stuff like that. One of the things with this studio, when we were doing it, this wall here, all through here, used to be the garage door that opened up, and it goes to the driveway. And my husband said, don't you want a door right here so your customers can walk right in off of the driveway? And I realized, with all my years of experience, if there's a door there, they're going to be peering in. Even if I have it locked, they're going to be knocking. They're going to be, so I don't have any windows. I don't have any door here. And I have a gate right through here, and it's locked. So the only time that that unlocks, and my door is over here in the backyard. Anytime I have customers that day, I actually prop that open, and I have a sign that leads them through. And also it gives them a better experience. You know what I mean? Instead of just my driveway, they get this garden as they come in. I want my brides to almost feel like that this is part of their wedding experience. That's why I do my garden so beautiful. Also for me, I need it too. But anyway, so come up with a plan. How are you going to block out some times for just sewing? And what do you do to accomplish that? We all know as seamstresses, when we get into sewing, it's not a pretty sight. There's thread and messes everywhere. So come up with a plan. And then here's the other thing. Don't be afraid to change that plan. Why? Because as I realized, Wednesday, just having it just Wednesdays wasn't working for me. Every week needed to kind of, yes, I only want brides one day a week, but I need to be a little flexible so that I can fit into some of their schedules. So they can choose Wednesday or Thursday or Friday if they're out of town, and then that week, that's my only day. The other thing I did this year that I'm trying is I was meeting a couple brides a week. Now I am semi-retired. I used to do so many wedding gowns, and it was just day in and day out, and I was just exhausted, and I want to scale that down a little bit. Originally, when I left the shop, I thought maybe one bride a week and just really enjoy her wedding, and I would meet one. So I scheduled one bride every Wednesday. Well, then of course it became 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, just because I want to try to fit them in, plus paying my bills and stuff like that. But this time I ended up doing 4 brides a couple Fridays ago, and 2 last week. And now I have completely blocked out this week, and I actually don't even have another bride until a week from Thursday. So I'm hoping this rack back here has about 6 wedding gowns in it right now, and I'm going to try to get through those. I actually have my more casual, it's kind of cold outside, so I've got my cozies, I've got my leggings on, I've got my slippers on, and I'm not going to have to clean up the studio and this mess until next Wednesday, so a week from tomorrow. So I'm just going to dig in and get it done, and actually hopefully get a lot of videos out for you guys as well. But so I'm adjusting. So in this third season, I'm like, okay, that was good last year. But what if I met a lot of my brides at the beginning of the month, and then in the middle 2 weeks, I actually sewed their dresses? Maybe I could get more time for sewing. I don't know. I'm trying that out. See if I meet more at the beginning and have a little extra time. So don't be afraid to adjust the plan a little bit. And I'd love to hear how you guys are working on that and dealing with that. And also, do you work late into the night? Or are you an early morning person? That's the other thing is once I've eaten dinner, I'm done for. I am no good. Like, my brain doesn't even calculate. So I've done a lot of late nights in my life, but the older I get, I realize I'm just not as good of a seamstress in the evening. So we might as well and I get frustrated and irritated. But I could get up pretty early and get out here early to do stuff. But later in my life, I'm trying to keep a schedule. That's another thing. I should probably mention that too. The difference between being at the bridal shop and now being back in sewing in my home is, at first, it was a struggle to keep a schedule. And I would be like, oh, let me just clean the house. Let me, mill around in the morning and not get out here right on time. And then I was losing time and stuff like that. I've learned now that even though I'm sewing out of my home, I need to act like I'm basically opening my store and keep regular hours. So I know, unless I have a crunch and I need to get in here earlier, I try to be out here at 9 a.m. Every day, and I usually will quit about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, depending on that. So I'm trying to just say, you know what, I don't have a boss over my head making sure, but I'm trying to keep regular business hours, even if it's just me out here sewing in my slippers. So tell me what you think about that. Do you keep regular hours? Do you just try to do it in between being a mom, picking kids up from school, all of those kind of things? It's great conversation. We all do things a little different, and that's okay. But as long as you come up with a plan, don't be afraid to change that plan a little bit and adjust it. And then get yourself either a good app or a good planner, and let's start making some money. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I am going to jump into a week of diving into these gowns back here. I'm going to put on I have a little TV up here, so sometimes I'll put on some praise music and I'll just get to doing it. Or sometimes I put on gardening because it's snowy out there or cold out there. And I'm like, you know what? I'll just be in a gardening world while I'm sewing. But anyways, love you guys so much. Happy sewing. Hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and we will see you in the next video. Love you, friends.